Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. There are a lot of things that people do not understand about our court system. One of the things that most people don't understand is the issue of conflict of interest, when it arises and who has or who may potentially have a conflict of interest. Now, you probably know this gal right here. She was the judge who was sentencing a man in Las Vegas when he did the flying trapeze act and jumped over the bench and tried to hurt her. Now, for those of you who may not remember this event, here is a little segment that was recorded at the time by the courtroom cameras. Now, as you can see, the court officers get involved and the gentleman in the black suit gets involved. He's putting the guy in a chokehold. They pull him back around, and in just a little bit there, he started throwing hands with the guy, and one of the deputies got put in the hospital. It was a pretty violent event, and not only were the court officers injured and the judge was shaken up, I think she had to get a little first aid, but the guy who did it was obviously suffered some blows there from the court officers, and likely he had to be treated. Yesterday, he was sentenced to, I believe it was 19 months in prison for battery. And the comment section in some of the videos where this was discussed was absolutely off the wall. People were saying that 19 months was not enough time for, beating a judge and beating a deputy. And at that point, there were a number of people who chimed in because they understand how the system works and said, look, this judge wasn't sentencing him for the attack on her. She was sentencing him for the event that brought him before her in the first place. The attack on her will obviously be handled by another judge. And the reason for that is pretty simple. That judge would have a very clear bias and might very well be inclined to send him to jail for, a lot longer than a judge who might be perhaps more objective about it. So it's really important to understand that a judge cannot be involved in a matter and then sit and decide that matter. I think a good example of that is the Murdaugh case. In Murdaugh's case, there was a situation where the judge had to remove a juror. There are now some allegations about the removal of that juror being done by the judge at the request of or at the instigation of the clerk. And the clerk, it appears, and again, because I don't know, I have to say it merely appears that she might not have been acting appropriately. She might have said things that she certainly shouldn't have said. And that as a result of that, we have this situation where the judge was intimately involved in removing the juror. As a result of that, there were only two people really who were involved in that, the clerk and the judge. Well, the clerk's conduct is at issue and is cited as the rationale for a motion for a new trial, and the judge was the decision maker, so he is a witness. Now, if there were 15 other people there at the time and they all had a piece of this, then he wouldn't be a necessary witness, and he might not have a conflict of interest in the true technical sense of things. But because he was involved and because he will be a necessary witness in determining whether that juror may have been improperly removed and whether, in fact, that juror would have been a vote not to convict Alex Murdaugh, that creates an issue where he did the right thing and recused himself. I think the judge made a good decision there. The last thing in the world you want to do as a trial judge is create additional appellate issues. And that is essentially what he was doing. He was creating additional appellate issues. If he had stayed on, the assertion would have been the reason the motion for new trial wasn't granted was because he was afraid it would make him look bad. Now, no judge really minds if an appellate court reverses him. That's what appellate courts are for. He might think they're wrong. He might think that because they weren't there and didn't look the defendant in the eye, they don't have a real grasp of what went on. But he's not going to go home and cry into his bed pillow over it. It's simply the way the system works. So a judge cannot be a judge in a case where he is involved. And for that reason, that's why he recused himself in that case. And it's interesting that a lot of the hoopla surrounding that, they thought he was just fine to handle the issue of sentencing on the financial crimes. But they didn't think he was just fine to handle the murder trial, because that's where he really wants to get sprung. So there's a little bit of disingenuity there in terms of this judge is the worst thing in the world. He's worse than peanut butter on pumpernickel in the murder case, and then saying, oh yeah, but he's just fine for these financial crimes. I find that level of duplicity a little troubling from lawyers who are admitted to the bar, but hey, if they can sleep at night and feel like they're doing a good job for their client, that's between them and the good Lord. It isn't my job to judge them. I try not to judge when possible. At any rate, I wanted to clear that up because I do think that people misunderstand why the judge gave him 19 months and why everybody thought that was much too short of a sentence. Now, I want to point out something here about this gentleman. If you notice, it looks like somebody put a hairnet over him. They didn't put a hairnet over him because he's shy, and it's not a hairnet. What it is an anti-spit mask, because apparently the defendant there has a propensity for expelling saliva in the direction of corrections officers, police officers, court deputies, and I'm sure sometimes even his own attorneys. And I'm sure if he was able to get close enough to the judge, he'd probably do that too. The bottom line is, this is really kind of a tragedy on a number of levels. I don't know what's in this fellow's heart, but I can tell you that the man is not right in the head. He clearly has emotional issues. He clearly has mental issues. Normal people don't go around spitting on people and attacking judges. I think there's clearly some psychological problems that this gentleman has, and hopefully when he goes to prison for 19 months, they can help work on that, and perhaps when he's sentenced for the attack on the judge, he'll get a little extra time to think even longer about why he might want to get on medications and stay on medications. At any rate, that's what I have for you today. If you have the opportunity today, try to go out of your way and do something nice for somebody. I baked some pistache yesterday. We have an extra loaf, and my wife's going to take it into the office. So, every time you have an opportunity and you don't pass it up, it's a win for the rest of us, and it's a win for you too. So, thanks for watching. Catch me down here at the beach next time. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.